Welcome to Santa Cruz, California, where this little studio in a modest backyard became the battleground for a fight against injustice. This is the creative haven of Elise Harper, a 29-year-old artist who turned her lifelong passion for painting into a thriving career, live streaming her art sessions to over 500,000 followers on TikTok. Her fans don't just watch her paint. They've become a family, a community that shares her love for creativity and beauty. But on a quiet August evening, a group of fake HOA cops stormed in, labeled her beloved studio an unapproved structure, and demanded she tear it down or pay a crippling $4,000 fine. They didn't stop there. They smashed her artwork, spilled her paints, and tried to crush her spirit. What they didn't know was that Elise is more than just an artist. She's a social media star with an army of loyal fans who'd rally to her side in a heartbeat. This is HOA Karen Files, where we expose the bullies who target dreamers, the ones who think they can tear down someone's passion without a fight. Have you ever had a fake HOA, or any bully, threaten something you love? Maybe it was a garden, a small business, or a creative space like Elise's. I want to hear your story. Drop it in the comments below, because I read every single one. And if you're new here, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss an episode of HOA Karen Files. We're diving deep into how Elise turned this attack into a movement, using her art and her community to fight back against these scammers. Let's get started, because this story is about more than a studio. It's about the power of creativity and the strength of a community that refuses to let a dreamer fall. Elise Harper, a 29-year-old artist with a quiet intensity, lived in a small rental house on the edge of Santa Cruz, California, a coastal town known for its laid-back vibe and artistic community. The house was a far cry from the glossy beachfront properties that dotted the area. Its faded yellow paint peeled in strips, the front porch sagged under years of neglect, and the kitchen still sported avocado green cabinets straight out of the 1970s. Elise didn't care about the house's imperfections. She hadn't chosen it for its charm. What drew her to the property was the backyard, a sprawling, overgrown space with a rickety old shed that she'd transformed into her dream studio. The shed had been a mess when Elise first moved in 3 years ago, its roof leaking, its walls covered in cobwebs, and the floor littered with rusty nails and broken glass. But Elise saw potential where others saw junk. She spent months fixing it up, using every spare dollar from her barista job to buy supplies. She patched the roof with shingles she found on clearance, painted the walls a soft cream to reflect the light, and installed a large window to let in the golden California sun. She sanded the floor by hand, her knees aching as she worked late into the night, and added a skylight to watch the stars while she painted. By the time she was done, the shed was unrecognizable, a bright, airy studio filled with the tools of her trade: easels, canvases, jars of brushes, and shelves lined with tubes of paint in every color imaginable. The walls were a gallery of her work: vibrant landscapes of the Santa Cruz coastline, abstract portraits with bold strokes of color, and dreamy seascapes that seemed to shimmer with light. To Elise, the studio wasn't just a place to work. It was her sanctuary, a space where she could escape the chaos of the world and lose herself in her art. Elise had always been an artist, ever since she was a child growing up in a small apartment in Oakland. Her mother, a single parent who worked as a nurse, couldn't afford art lessons, but she'd buy Elise cheap watercolor sets and sketch pads whenever she could. Elise would spend hours in her tiny bedroom, painting imaginary worlds where she could be anyone, go anywhere. Art became her refuge during tough times, when her mom worked double shifts, when bullies at school teased her for her hand-me-down clothes, when she felt like she didn't belong. "You've got a gift, Mija," her mom would say, pinning Elise's drawings to the fridge. "Don't ever stop." Elise never did. She studied art in community college, working nights at a diner to pay tuition, but the dream of making a living as an artist always felt out of reach, until TikTok changed everything. 2 years ago, on a whim, Elise had set up her phone to livestream a painting session. She'd been working on a sunset seascape, the kind of piece that made her heart sing: golden light melting into the ocean, streaks of pink and orange blazing across the sky. She didn't expect anyone to watch. She just wanted to share her process with a few friends. But something about the video resonated. Maybe it was Elise's soothing voice as she narrated her brushstrokes, or the way the colors came alive on the canvas, or the quiet authenticity she exuded, a young woman in a messy studio, pouring her soul into her work. Whatever it was, the video took off, gaining 100,000 views overnight. Comments poured in. "This is so relaxing. You're incredible. Please do more." Elise was stunned, her hands trembling as she read the messages. For the first time, she felt seen. She started live streaming regularly, setting up her phone on a tripod in the corner of the studio. Her audience grew steadily, drawn to her talent and her warmth. Elise wasn't just an artist. She was a storyteller, weaving tales about her life as she painted. The time she got caught in a rainstorm on the beach while sketching, the stray cat she'd adopted and named Picasso, the way the ocean made her feel alive. Her videos became a mix of art tutorial and ASMR, the sound of her brush against the canvas a soothing rhythm for viewers around the world. Within a year, she had 500,000 followers, and her income from sponsorships, art sales, and livestream donations allowed her to quit her barista job. "I can't believe this is my life," she'd say on her streams, her hazel eyes shining. "I get to paint every day, and I get to share it with all of you. This studio, it's my everything." On a warm August evening, Elise was in her element, live streaming to an audience of 10,000 viewers. She was working on a large canvas, a stormy ocean scene that had been brewing in her mind for weeks. The painting was ambitious, dark, churning waves under a sky heavy with gray clouds, flashes of lightning illuminating the horizon. "This piece is about chaos and survival," she told her viewers, dipping her brush into a mix of cobalt blue and white. "I saw a storm like this last year on the coast. It was terrifying, but so beautiful. Let's add some waves here." She was so focused that she didn't hear the car pull up outside, its tires crunching on the gravel driveway. The studio door burst open with a bang, the sound echoing through the small space and making Elise jump. Her brush slipped, leaving a jagged streak of blue across the canvas, ruining the wave she'd been perfecting. 3 people stood in the doorway, their silhouettes framed against the fading light of the evening. They were dressed in matching black vests with HOA enforcement in bold white letters across the chest. The woman in the lead, who introduced herself as Janet Reed, was in her late 40s, with sharp features and a pinched expression that suggested she rarely smiled. She carried a clipboard in one hand and a camera in the other, immediately snapping photos of the studio without asking permission. Her voice was cold, clipped as she spoke. "This structure is in violation of Coastal Pines HOA regulations," she said, her eyes scanning the room with disdain. "It's unapproved, and our records show you're using it for commercial purposes. You need to dismantle it within 48 hours or pay a $4,000 fine." Elise blinked, her mind struggling to process what was happening. Her heart pounded in her chest, a mix of confusion and fear tightening her throat. "Coastal Pines HOA," she said, her voice shaky but firm. "I've lived here for 3 years. There's no HOA in this area. My landlord would have told me. This is my studio. I'm an artist. I live stream my painting sessions, but it's not a business in the way you're saying." Janet smirked, her lips curling in a way that made Elise's stomach twist. She handed Elise a letter, the paper stamped with a logo that looked official but somehow off, like something designed in a rush. "Coastal Pines HOA was established last year," Janet said, her tone dripping with condescension. "You're under our jurisdiction now. You should have received our notices. Pay the fine, or we'll have this shed torn down, and you'll be responsible for the demolition costs." Before Elise could respond, one of the men, a burly guy in his 30s with a name tag that read Tony, stepped forward. His movements were aggressive, his broad shoulders filling the doorway as he grabbed the canvas Elise had been working on, the stormy ocean she'd poured her heart into. "This is just junk," he sneered, his voice gruff. Without a second thought, he snapped the canvas in half over his knee, the wood splintering with a sickening crack. The paint smeared across the torn fabric, the lightning-streaked sky now a crumpled mess on the floor. Elise gasped, her hands flying to her mouth as tears welled in her eyes. The other man, whose name tag read Nick, started knocking over paint cans, the colors spilling across the studio floor in a chaotic rainbow: vermilion red, ultramarine blue, and cadmium yellow pooling together in a heartbreaking mess. Elise's live stream was still running, the camera capturing every moment of the chaos. Her viewers, who'd been chatting happily in the comments moments before, watched in horror as the scene unfolded. The chat exploded with reactions. "What's happening? They broke her painting. This is awful. Call the police. Elise, are you okay?" Elise's hands shook as she grabbed her phone from the tripod, her voice trembling with a mix of fear and anger. "You're on camera," she said, pointing the phone at Janet, Tony, and Nick. "I'm live streaming this to thousands of people right now. Get out of my studio now." Her voice cracked on the last word, but there was a fire in her eyes that hadn't been there before. Janet laughed, a harsh, mocking sound that sent a chill down Elise's spine. "You've got 48 hours, she said, her gaze cold and unyielding. "Don't make this harder than it needs to be." She motioned to Tony and Nick, and the group turned to leave, slamming the door behind them. The sound reverberated through the studio, a final punctuation to their destruction. Elise sank to her knees, tears streaming down her face as she looked at the ruined canvas and the spilled paint. Her sanctuary, the space she'd built with her own hands, felt violated. But even in her despair, a spark of defiance flickered inside her. She thought about her followers, the community that had given her a career, a purpose. They picked the wrong artist to mess with, she whispered to herself, wiping her tears with the back of her hand. She turned back to her phone, the live stream still active, her viewers flooding the comments with support. "I'm okay, guys," she said, her voice hoarse but determined. "But I need your help. These people, they're trying to take my studio, my dream. I'm not going to let them. Will you help me fight back?" The comments lit up with affirmations. "We've got your back, Elise. Those jerks are going down. You're not alone." Elise took a deep breath, her resolve hardening. She saved the live stream footage, knowing it could be evidence, and posted a clip of the incident to her TikTok with a caption. "Fake HOA cops just trashed my studio. They think they can shut me down, but I need your help to fight back. Hashtag Save Elise's Studio." The video spread like wildfire, gaining 2 million views overnight and igniting a firestorm of support. Elise knew she had a powerful weapon, her community, and she was ready to use it to protect the space that meant everything to her. Elise barely slept that night, her mind racing with a mix of fear, anger, and determination. She sat on the floor of her studio until the early hours, cleaning up the spilled paint with a rag, the sharp scent of turpentine filling the air. The broken canvas lay in the corner, a painful reminder of the violation she'd endured. Every creak of the house made her jump, her nerves frayed as she replayed the confrontation in her head. Janet's cold smirk, Tony's aggressive stance, the sound of her canvas snapping in two. But even in her exhaustion, she felt a growing resolve. She wasn't going to let these people take her studio, not without a fight. When she finally checked her phone at dawn, she was stunned. Her TikTok video had exploded, gaining over 2 million views in just 12 hours. It had been shared across platforms, Twitter, Instagram, Reddit, even Facebook groups for artists and small business owners. Hashtags like hashtag Save Elise's Studio and hashtag Fake HOA Cops were trending, with thousands of people commenting, sharing, and reposting. Her inbox was flooded with messages from followers around the world, their words a lifeline in her darkest moment. "This is so wrong. What can we do to help?" wrote a fan from London. "I'm an artist too. I'd be devastated if this happened to me." "We're with you, Elise," said another from Texas. A group of art students from Chicago started a petition to protect Elise's studio, which gained 5,000 signatures overnight. Elise sat on her couch, a cup of cold coffee in her hands, tears streaming down her face as she read the messages. "I'm not alone," she whispered, her voice trembling with gratitude. The support wasn't just emotional, it was practical, too. A follower who worked as a paralegal messaged her with advice on how to file a police report and suggested she keep the live stream footage as evidence. Another fan, a small business owner, offered to start a GoFundMe to help replace the damaged supplies, writing, "You've given us so much joy with your art, Elise. Let us give back to you." Within hours, the GoFundMe was live, and donations began pouring in, $5, $10, $50 at a time, each accompanied by a message of encouragement. "You've got this. Don't let them win." Your art is worth fighting for. By the end of the day, the campaign had raised $3,000, more than enough to replace the broken canvas and spilled paint. Elise went live on TikTok to thank her followers, her voice choked with emotion. "I can't believe how amazing you all are," she said, holding up her phone to show the donation total. "This isn't just about me. It's about all of us, standing up for what we love." Elise decided to dig deeper into the letter Janet had given her. She sat at her small kitchen table, the letter spread out in front of her, a cup of chamomile tea steaming beside her. The logo, Coastal Pines HOA, looked official at first glance, with a stylized pine tree and a professional font, but something about it felt off. The paper was thin, the ink slightly smudged, and the email address at the bottom, enforcement@coastalpeninsula.net, mail to enforcement@coastalpeninsula.net, seemed too generic. Elise posted a screenshot of the letter to her TikTok, captioning it, "Does anyone know if this is real? I've never heard of Coastal Pines HOA, and my landlord says there's no HOA here. Help me figure this out." Hashtag Save Elise's Studio. Her followers jumped into action, their collective sleuthing skills coming to the rescue. Within hours, a follower who worked in cybersecurity reached out via direct message. "I ran a WHOS lookup on the domain," they wrote. "It's fake. The domain was registered 3 months ago to a company called Pinnacle Realty Ventures, with a P.O. box in San Diego. I also checked county records. There's no Coastal Pines HOA registered in Santa Cruz, or anywhere in California for that matter." Elise's heart raced as she read the message, a mix of relief and anger washing over her. Relief that she wasn't crazy, there really was no HOA. Anger that these people had targeted her, thinking she'd be an easy mark. She shared the update with her followers, who were now calling the group Fake HOA Cops in the comments, their outrage growing with every new piece of information. Elise knew she needed to act fast. The 48-hour deadline Janet had given her was looming, and she wasn't about to let these scammers come back and destroy more of her studio. She decided to use her platform to fight back, leveraging the power of her online community. She went live on TikTok, sitting in her damaged studio, the broken canvas and spilled paint cans visible behind her. She wore a simple white t-shirt splattered with paint, her dark hair pulled back in a messy bun, her hazel eyes fierce with determination. "These fake HOA cops think they can bully me into shutting down my studio," she said, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. "They broke my canvas, spilled my paint, and threatened to tear this place down. But I'm not giving up, and I know you won't either. I'm hosting a live stream tomorrow to finish this painting, and I want you all to join me. Let's show them they can't stop us. Let's show them the power of art, of community, of fighting for what we love. Will you be there?" Her followers responded with a flood of support, promising to tune in and spread the word. "We'll be there, Elise." They messed with the wrong artist. "Let's make this the biggest live stream yet." Some of her followers suggested she contact the police, which Elise hadn't even considered in the chaos of the previous night. She called the Santa Cruz Police Department, her hands shaking as she dialed the number. She was connected to Officer Emily Carter, a young cop in her late 20s who had a soft spot for the arts. Her sister was an aspiring sculptor, and Emily herself had dabbled in watercolor painting as a hobby. "I've seen your TikToks," Emily said, her voice warm and reassuring. "My sister's a huge fan. She watches your live streams all the time. I'm so sorry this happened to you. What you're describing sounds like a scam. We've had reports of fake HOAs targeting people in the area, especially renters and small business owners. Can you share the footage from your live stream?" Elise emailed the video, her heart pounding as she waited for Emily's response. Emily watched the footage, her expression darkening as she saw Tony snap the canvas and Nick spill the paint. "This is vandalism and extortion," she said, her tone serious. "They're breaking the law, and we can use this video as evidence. I'd like to set up a sting operation. If they come back, we'll be ready to catch them in the act. Can you keep that live stream going tomorrow? It'll help us document everything." Elise nodded, a surge of hope rising in her chest. "I can do that," she said. "My followers will be there. They'll be watching." Emily smiled, a determined glint in her eye. "Good. Let's take these guys down." The next day, Elise prepared for her live stream with a mix of nerves and excitement. She swept the studio floor, the scent of paint still lingering in the air, and set up a new canvas on her easel. She decided to finish the stormy ocean painting, but with a twist. She incorporated the broken pieces of the original canvas into the design, gluing the splintered wood onto the new canvas and painting over it. This painting is about surviving the storm, she told her viewers as she went live, her voice strong and clear. It's about taking something broken and making it beautiful again. That's what we're doing right now. Over 50,000 people tuned in, a record for Elise, their comments a wave of support. You've got this. Don't let them win. We love you, Elise. She painted with renewed energy, her brushstrokes bold and defiant, the stormy waves taking shape under her steady hand. She mixed shades of gray and blue, adding flashes of white for the lightning, her movements almost meditative as she poured her emotions into the canvas. The atmosphere in the studio was electric, the air buzzing with anticipation. Elise kept glancing at the door, her heart racing every time she heard a car pass by outside. Her viewers were on edge too, their comments reflecting their anxiety. Are they coming back? Be careful, Elise. We're here for you. Then, right on schedule, the door burst open again. Janet, Tony, and Nick marched in, their vests on, their faces smug with confidence. Janet's voice was loud, cutting through the quiet hum of Elise's live stream. Your 48 hours are up, she shouted, her clipboard clutched tightly in her hand. Pay the $4,000, or we're tearing this place down, starting now. Tony grabbed a can of red paint and threw it against the wall, the color splattering like blood, the droplets running down the cream-colored paint in a gruesome streak. Nick started pulling canvases off the shelves, tossing them to the floor with a careless thud, the frames cracking as they hit the ground. Elise's viewers watched in real time, their comments exploding with anger. They're back. This is insane. Call the cops now. Elise stood her ground, her phone still recording, her heart pounding, but her voice steady. You're on camera, she said, her eyes locked on Janet. And I know you're not a real HOA. Pinnacle Realty Ventures doesn't exist in Santa Cruz. I had my followers look into it. You're scammers, and you're not taking my studio. Leave now, or you'll regret it. Janet's smirk faltered, a flicker of uncertainty crossing her face, but she tried to bluff her way through. You can't prove anything, she said, her voice less confident than before. You're just a nobody with a shed. That's when Officer Carter and her team burst through the door, their badges gleaming in the evening light, their voices commanding as they shouted. Santa Cruz PD. Hands up, you're under arrest for vandalism, extortion, and impersonating an HOA. Emily led the charge, her gun drawn but her expression calm, her training evident in her steady movements. Two other officers flanked her, their handcuffs at the ready. Janet, Tony, and Nick froze, their smug expressions melting into panic as the reality of their situation sank in. The crowd on Elise's live stream erupted in cheers, the comments scrolling so fast they were a blur. Yes, they're done. Justice for Elise. The officers moved quickly, cuffing the trio and reading them their rights as they led them out of the studio to the waiting police cars. Elise turned back to her phone, tears of relief streaming down her face as she addressed her viewers. We did it, guys, she said, her voice trembling with emotion. We stopped them, together. Thank you for being here, for believing in me, for fighting with me. This studio is ours, and they can't take it away. Her followers flooded the comments with celebration. You're a hero, Elise. So proud of you. This is the best live stream ever. Elise wiped her tears, a shaky smile spreading across her face. She picked up her brush and turned back to the canvas, adding a final stroke to the stormy ocean. A single ray of light breaking through the clouds, a symbol of hope after the storm. The arrests of Janet, Tony, and Nick were just the beginning. Officer Emily Carter and her team at the Santa Cruz Police Department wasted no time diving into the investigation, using the live stream footage as their primary piece of evidence. The video was a goldmine, capturing every moment of the group's vandalism and threats in high definition, with 50,000 witnesses watching in real time. Emily sat at her desk in the precinct, a cup of black coffee in her hand, replaying the footage on her computer. She winced as Tony threw the paint can, the red splattering across the wall, and shook her head as Nick tossed Elise's canvases to the floor. These guys are bold, she muttered to her partner, Officer Daniel Ruiz, a veteran cop with a knack for unraveling scams. But they're sloppy. They didn't even check if she was recording. Using the fake HOA letter and the domain trace from Elise's follower, the police linked Pinnacle Realty Ventures to a man named Victor Lang, a 52-year-old with a rap sheet that spanned a decade: fraud, identity theft, and money laundering, all tied to real estate scams across California. Victor had set up Pinnacle as a front to target properties in up-and-coming areas like Santa Cruz, where rising property values made land a hot commodity. His MO was simple but effective: pose as an HOA, issue fake fines for violations, and pressure homeowners, or renters like Elise, into paying up or selling their properties at a loss. The police found a paper trail in the group's SUV, parked outside Elise's house during the arrests, which included a list of targets, fake HOA letters, and a burner phone Victor had used to communicate with his team. Elise's viral livestream had a ripple effect far beyond her small studio. The video of the arrests, which she posted to TikTok with the caption, "We stopped the fake HOA cops," hashtag Save Elise's Studio, exploded online, racking up 10 million views in just 48 hours. It was shared by influencers, art communities, and even celebrities, including a well-known actor who'd bought one of Elise's paintings at a gallery the previous year. "This is outrageous," the actor tweeted, linking to Elise's video. "Support this incredible artist. She's fighting for all of us creatives." Hashtags like hashtag Justice for Elise and hashtag FakeHOCops trended worldwide, with fans creating fan art of Elise painting in her studio, often with captions like "Art wins" and "Don't mess with creatives." A group of art students from a university in Seattle made a viral TikTok dance to celebrate Elise's victory, painting their faces with blue and red streaks to mimic the spilled paint in her studio. "We love you, Elise," they shouted at the end, their voices echoing with joy. The attention brought Elise's story to the local news. KSBW, a Santa Cruz news station, reached out for an interview, and Elise agreed, hoping to raise awareness about the scam. The reporter, a young woman named Mia Torres, met Elise in her studio, the camera crew setting up around the easel where the stormy ocean painting still sat, now a symbol of resilience with its broken pieces woven into the design. Mia was warm and empathetic, her questions gentle but pointed. "Elise, can you tell us what happened that day?" she asked, her microphone angled toward Elise. Elise took a deep breath, her hands fidgeting with a paintbrush as she recounted the incident. The door bursting open, the canvas snapping, the paint spilling across the floor. "These fake HOA cops tried to destroy my dream," she said, her voice steady but emotional. "This studio is everything to me. It's where I create, where I connect with my community. But my followers saved me. They showed up, they fought with me, and we stopped these scammers together." Mia's segment aired that evening, and it struck a chord with viewers across the Central Coast. The story was picked up by national outlets like NBC News and BuzzFeed, with headlines like "TikTok Artist Fights Off Fake HOA Scam" and "How a Painter's Livestream Took Down a Real Estate Scheme." Elise's follower count skyrocketed, jumping from 500,000 to 750,000 in a week, as people from all over the world tuned in to support her. But the most significant impact came from the other victims who began to come forward, inspired by Elise's courage. Over a dozen homeowners in Santa Cruz reported similar experiences with Pinnacle Realty Ventures, their stories eerily similar to Elise's. A 65-year-old man named Harold, who lived just a few miles away, had paid $3,000 to avoid losing his garage after Pinnacle claimed it violated HOA codes. A young family, the Garcias, had sold their home at a loss after months of harassment, with fake HOA cops showing up weekly to demand fines for everything from their kids' toys in the yard to the color of their mailbox. "They wouldn't leave us alone," Mrs. Garcia told KSBW, her voice trembling as she held her toddler on her lap. "We thought we had no choice but to sell." Elise's heart broke as she watched the news segment, her hands clenching into fists. She thought about Harold, a retired mechanic who'd saved for years to build that garage, and the Garcias, who'd lost their first home because of these scammers. She felt a surge of responsibility. She had a platform, a voice, and she needed to use it to help others. She hosted a live stream the next day, inviting the victims to join her in her studio. The space was cramped, with Harold, the Garcias, and a handful of others squeezed in among the easels and paint cans, but the atmosphere was warm, filled with a shared sense of purpose. Elise set up her phone to record, her followers tuning in by the thousands to hear the stories. "I'm not the only one these fake HOA cops targeted," Elise said, her voice strong. "These are my neighbors, my community, and they've been hurt too. Let's listen to them, and let's keep fighting for justice." Harold spoke first, his voice gruff but emotional as he described how he'd paid the fine out of fear, worried he'd lose his home. Mrs. Garcia broke down as she talked about leaving the house where her kids had taken their first steps, her husband rubbing her back as she spoke. The live stream was raw, emotional, and powerful, with Elise's followers flooding the comments with support. "This is heartbreaking. We need to stop these scammers. Elise, you're amazing for doing this." Officer Carter's investigation, meanwhile, uncovered a larger network behind Pinnacle Realty Ventures. Victor Lang wasn't working alone. He was partnered with a developer, Coastal Development Partners, who'd been buying up properties in Santa Cruz to build luxury condos aimed at wealthy retirees and tech executives. Victor's job was to scare homeowners and renters into selling, using fake HOA fines as a weapon to make their lives miserable. Elise's property was a prime target. Emily told her during a visit to the studio. A map of the area spread out on Elise's work table. "It's close to the beach, on a large lot. Perfect for their project. They thought you'd be an easy mark, a single renter, an artist, someone they could intimidate." Elise's jaw tightened, her fingers gripping the edge of the table. "They thought I'd just give up," she said, her voice low but fierce. "They didn't count on my followers, or on me fighting back." Elise's fans continued to rally, their support growing with every passing day. The GoFundMe to help her replace her supplies reached $15,000, with donations coming from as far away as Australia, Japan, and Germany. "You've given us so much joy with your art, Elise," wrote a donor from Tokyo, who'd contributed $100. "We couldn't let these bullies win." Another group of followers, a collective of artists from New York, organized a virtual art auction, selling prints of Elise's work to raise money for the other victims. The auction raised an additional $5,000, which Elise distributed to Harold, the Garcias, and the others to help them recover their losses. "This isn't just about me," Elise said on a live stream, holding up a check she'd written for Harold. "It's about all the people these scammers hurt. We're in this together." Back in her studio, Elise returned to the stormy ocean painting, determined to finish it despite the damage. She worked late into the night, the soft glow of a lamp illuminating her workspace, the hum of crickets outside her window. She incorporated the broken pieces of the original canvas into the final design, gluing them onto the new canvas and painting over them with shades of gray and blue. The splinters became part of the waves, the cracks part of the lightning, transforming the destruction into a symbol of resilience. She called the piece, After the Storm, a testament to her journey, surviving the chaos and emerging stronger. She decided to auction the painting on her TikTok, with all proceeds going to a local charity for artists in need. The live-streamed auction was a hit, with fans bidding eagerly, their comments filled with admiration. "This is so beautiful. The story behind it gives me chills. I need this in my house." The painting sold for $2,000, a record for Elise, to a fan from New York who wrote, "This piece means so much to me. It's a reminder that we can overcome anything." Elise packaged the painting with care, her heart full as she taped the box shut. She'd turned a moment of pain into something beautiful, and she knew this was just the beginning of her fight. The arrests of Janet, Tony, and Nick set the stage for a larger legal battle, one that would unravel the web of deceit spun by Victor Lang and his associates. Officer Emily Carter and her team at the Santa Cruz Police Department worked tirelessly, collaborating with the district attorney to build a case against Pinnacle Realty Ventures. The evidence was overwhelming. Elise's live stream footage, the fake HOA letter, the domain trace, the burner phone, and the list of targets found in the SUV painted a clear picture of a calculated scam. But the investigation didn't stop at Pinnacle. Emily's team uncovered a direct link to Coastal Development Partners, a developer that had been quietly buying up properties in Santa Cruz to build a series of luxury condos aimed at wealthy buyers looking for vacation homes. Victor's role was to clear the way, using fake HOA fines to pressure homeowners and renters into selling at below-market prices, allowing coastal development to swoop in and profit. The district attorney charged Victor Lang with racketeering, fraud, and extortion, serious crimes that carried a potential sentence of up to 20 years in prison. Janet, Tony, and Nick were charged as accomplices, facing up to 5 years each for their roles in the scam. Coastal Development Partners, though harder to pin down legally, was hit with a civil lawsuit for conspiracy to commit fraud, with the DA seeking to seize their assets to compensate the victims. Emily visited Elise in her studio to update her, bringing a file of documents and a map of the properties coastal development had targeted. They had big plans for this area, Emily said, pointing to Elise's house on the map. Your lot was key. It's one of the largest in the neighborhood, and its proximity to the beach made it perfect for their condos. They thought they could scare you into leaving. Elise's eyes narrowed, her fingers tightening around the paintbrush she was holding. They underestimated me, she said, her voice low but fierce. And they underestimated my community. Elise's story had already captured the public's imagination, but the legal proceedings turned her into a symbol of resistance for artists and creatives everywhere. Her TikTok following soared to over 1 million, with fans dubbing her the artist who fought back. She was invited to speak at an art festival in San Francisco, a prestigious event that drew artists, curators, and enthusiasts from across the state. Elise was nervous as she prepared for the speech, standing in her studio the night before, practicing in front of a mirror. She wore a simple linen dress splattered with paint, her dark hair loose around her shoulders, her hazel eyes bright with determination. "You can do this," she told her reflection, taking a deep breath. The next day, she stood on a stage in Golden Gate Park, a crowd of hundreds gathered before her, their faces a mix of admiration and curiosity. "They tried to take my studio, my safe space," she said, her voice echoing through the microphone. "They broke my canvas, spilled my paint, and told me I had 48 hours to tear it down. But they didn't know I had a community behind me, an army of dreamers who believe in the power of art. Art is about resilience. It's about creating beauty from pain, hope from despair. That's what we did here. We fought back, and we won." The audience erupted in applause, many holding up signs that read, #SaveElise'sStudio and Art Wins. A group of kids in the front row waved small canvases they'd painted, each one a miniature version of Elise's stormy ocean. Elise smiled, tears in her eyes, as she stepped off the stage, overwhelmed by the love and support. Back in Santa Cruz, the community around Elise's house rallied in a way she'd never expected. Local artists, inspired by her story, organized a mural project to celebrate her victory. They gathered in her backyard on a sunny Saturday, a group of a dozen painters ranging from teenagers to retirees, their hands covered in paint as they worked on the side of her studio. Elise watched in awe as the mural took shape, a vibrant seascape with rolling waves, a golden sun rising over the horizon, and a small figure painting at an easel, her brush poised mid-stroke. The words, "Elise's Sanctuary," were painted in bold, swirling letters across the top, a testament to the space's significance. "We wanted to honor what you've done," said Maria, a 50-year-old sculptor who'd led the project. "You fought for your art, and you fought for all of us." Elise hugged her, tears streaming down her face as the group cheered. The mural became a tourist attraction, drawing visitors who'd seen Elise's story online, their cameras flashing as they posed in front of the artwork. "I came all the way from LA to see this," a young artist named Chloe told Elise, snapping a photo. "You're an inspiration. I'm starting my own TikTok because of you." Elise smiled, her heart full. "This isn't just my studio anymore," she said, looking at the mural. "It's ours." The trial against Victor Lang was a media spectacle, with news crews from CNN, NBC, and local stations camped outside the Santa Cruz County Courthouse. The courtroom was packed, with Elise sitting in the front row, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. She wore a simple gray blazer over her paint-splattered dress, her hair pulled back in a neat bun, her expression a mix of nerves and determination. The prosecution called her as a witness, and she took the stand, her voice steady as she recounted the day of the attack. "They came into my studio without permission," she said, her eyes locked on Victor, who sat at the defense table, his face impassive. They broke my canvas, a painting I'd spent hours on, spilled my paint, and threatened to tear down my studio if I didn't pay $4,000. They called it an unapproved structure, but I knew there was no HOA. I live-streamed the whole thing to 50,000 people, and they saw everything. The prosecutor played the footage, the courtroom silent as the video showed Tony snapping the canvas, Nick throwing paint, and Janet's cold threats. The jury was visibly moved, several members shaking their heads in disbelief. Elise held up a photo of the damage, her hands trembling slightly, and then showed the finished after the storm painting, its broken pieces woven into the design. "This is what I made from their destruction," she said, her voice strong. "They tried to break me, but they only made me stronger." Victor's defense attorney tried to downplay his role, arguing that he was a small-time operator who'd been manipulated by coastal development partners, but the evidence was overwhelming. The burner phone, the list of targets, the fake HOA letters, and the email chains between Victor and coastal development painted a clear picture of a calculated scheme. After a week-long trial, the jury deliberated for just 3 hours before returning a guilty verdict on all counts: racketeering, fraud, and extortion. The judge sentenced Victor to 10 years in prison, with an additional 5 years of probation, and ordered him to pay restitution to the victims. Janet, Tony, and Nick took plea deals, testifying against Victor in exchange for reduced sentences. They each received 3 years, with orders to pay their share of the restitution, $10,000 each to Elise and the other victims. Coastal Development Partners, under pressure from the civil lawsuit, settled for $2.5 million, with the money distributed among the victims. Elise received $50,000, a sum that left her stunned as she sat in her studio, staring at the check. She knew exactly what she wanted to do with it. She started a small art fund, offering grants to young artists in Santa Cruz who couldn't afford supplies or studio space. She named it the After the Storm Fund, a nod to the painting that had become a symbol of her journey. "I want to give others the chance I had," she said at the fund's launch, cutting the ribbon with a paintbrush, her studio packed with local artists, neighbors, and supporters. "Art saved me. It gave me a voice, a purpose. Now I wanted to save others." The fund awarded its first grant, a $1,000 stipend, to a 16-year-old girl named Aaliyah, who'd been painting in her school's cafeteria because she had nowhere else to work. "Thank you, Elise," Aaliyah said, tears in her eyes as she accepted the check. "This means I can finally have my own easel, my own space." Elise hugged her, her heart swelling with pride. The aftermath of the trial sent shockwaves through the real estate industry in California. Developers across the state were forced to audit their practices, with several facing investigations for similar schemes. Lawmakers in Sacramento took notice, introducing a bill called Elise's Law, which made it a felony to impersonate an HOA with intent to defraud, with specific protections for renters and creatives, two groups often targeted by such scams. The bill also established a task force to investigate real estate fraud, with a focus on coastal areas like Santa Cruz, where gentrification was driving up property values and creating opportunities for exploitation. Elise Harper showed us what's at stake, a state senator said at a press conference, holding up a photo of Elise in her studio, paintbrush in hand. "She's a reminder that our communities, our artists, our dreamers, deserve protection. We're fighting for every studio, every small business, every home out there." Elise watched the press conference on her phone, sitting in her studio with a cup of tea, the mural outside glowing in the afternoon light. She thought about the day the fake HOA cops had stormed in, how terrified she'd been, how close she'd come to losing everything. But she also thought about the strength she'd found, in herself, in her art, in her community. "We did it," she whispered, a small smile playing on her lips. "We turned pain into purpose." She picked up her brush and turned back to her easel, a new canvas waiting for her next creation. In the years that followed the trial, Elise Harper's studio became more than just a place to paint. It became a symbol of creativity, resilience, and the power of community. Her TikTok following continued to grow, reaching over 2 million followers across platforms, with fans from every corner of the globe tuning in to watch her paint. Her live streams were a daily ritual for many, a source of calm and inspiration in a chaotic world. "I watch you every morning while I drink my coffee," wrote a fan from Sweden. Your voice, your brushstrokes, they make me feel like everything's going to be okay. Elise read the message during a live stream, her eyes misting over as she smiled at the camera. That means the world to me, she said, her voice soft. This isn't just about art. It's about connection, about reminding each other that we're not alone. Elise's story had a profound impact on young artists, many of whom credited her with giving them the courage to pursue their dreams. Letters and emails poured in, each one a testament to her influence. A 16-year-old girl from Texas wrote, "I started painting because of you, Elise. I was scared to show my work, but seeing you fight for your studio made me brave. I'm applying to art school next year." A 20-year-old from Canada shared a photo of his first gallery show, writing, "You showed me that art is worth fighting for. I wouldn't be here without you." Elise kept every letter, pinning them to a corkboard in her studio, a constant reminder of why she kept going. "You're changing lives," her mom told her during a visit, her voice thick with emotion as she looked at the board. "I always knew you would." Elise hugged her, tears in her eyes. "I learned from the best," she said, thinking of all the sacrifices her mom had made to support her dreams. The After the Storm Fund became a cornerstone of Elise's legacy, growing into a vital resource for young artists in Santa Cruz. With the $50,000 she'd received from the lawsuit settlement, plus additional donations from her followers, the fund expanded to offer not just grants, but also mentorship and studio space. Elise rented a small warehouse a few blocks from her house, turning it into a shared workspace where grant recipients could paint, sculpt, and create without worrying about the cost of rent or supplies. She decorated the space with bright murals, painted by the artists themselves, and filled it with easels, tables, and shelves of materials, all donated by her followers and local businesses. "This is your space," she told the first group of recipients, a mix of teens and young adults, their eyes wide with excitement as they explored the warehouse. "Create, dream, grow. I'll be here if you need me." The fund awarded grants to dozens of artists in its first year, with recipients like Aaliyah, the 16-year-old who'd received the first grant, going on to win local art competitions and gain recognition in the community. Elise also started hosting monthly workshops in her studio, opening the doors to kids and teens who wanted to learn about art. The workshops were a hit, with the small space packed every session, the air filled with the smell of paint and the sound of laughter. Elise taught everything from basic brush techniques to advanced color theory, but her favorite part was watching the kids express themselves. "Art isn't about being perfect," she told a shy 12-year-old named Lucas, who'd been hesitant to show his abstract painting, a swirl of reds and yellows that reminded Elise of a sunset. "It's about showing who you are. This is beautiful." Lucas beamed, his confidence growing with every stroke. The workshops became a community hub, with parents, neighbors, and even Officer Emily Carter stopping by to join in. Emily, who'd become a friend after the arrests, brought her sister, a sculptor named Clara, to one of the sessions, and the two of them painted alongside the kids, their laughter echoing through the studio. "You've created something special here," Emily told Elise, her hands covered in blue paint. "This place, it heals people." Elise smiled, her heart full. "That's all I ever wanted," she said. The community around Elise's house transformed in the wake of her fight. Neighbors who'd once kept to themselves, their interactions limited to a wave or a nod, started looking out for each other, forming a tight-knit group that met monthly to discuss ways to support local artists. They organized art fairs in the neighborhood park, where kids sold their paintings alongside professionals, the air filled with the sound of live music and the scent of food trucks. They hosted gallery nights at the warehouse, showcasing the work of After the Storm Fund recipients, with Elise acting as MC, her warm voice introducing each artist to a crowd of supporters. They even started a fundraiser for a local arts center, raising $20,000 in a single year to create a permanent space for classes and exhibitions. "Elise brought us together," a neighbor named Sarah said at one of the gallery nights, holding up a small seascape she'd bought from Aaliyah. "She reminded us what it means to fight for what you love and to fight for each other." Elise's law, passed in California with overwhelming support, a testament to the impact of her story. The bill made it a felony to impersonate an HOA with intent to defraud, with specific protections for renters and creatives, two groups often targeted by such scams. It also established a task force to investigate real estate fraud, with a focus on coastal areas like Santa Cruz, where gentrification was creating opportunities for exploitation. Similar laws were proposed in other states, including New York, Oregon, and Florida, with advocacy groups for artists using Elise's story to push for change. They distributed flyers with tips on how to spot fake HOAs, check county records, verify email domains, report suspicious activity, and included a photo of Elise in her studio, paintbrush in hand, with the caption, "Elise Harper fought for her art and won. You can too." Elise showed us the power of art, an advocate said at a rally in Los Angeles, her voice amplified through a megaphone. She's a reminder that creativity can overcome anything, that one voice, one brushstroke, can change the world. For Elise, the greatest reward was her studio itself, the space that had weathered the storm and emerged stronger. On the third anniversary of the incident, she held a special live stream to celebrate, inviting her followers, neighbors, Officer Carter, and the After the Storm Fund recipients to join her. The studio was packed, with people spilling out into the backyard, their laughter and chatter filling the air. They unveiled a new mural on the studio's interior wall, a collaborative piece painted by the kids from her workshops. The mural depicted a vibrant ocean, with waves and shades of blue and green, a golden sun rising in the distance, and small figures painting, sculpting, and dancing along the shore. The words, "Art heals," were woven into the waves, a mantra that had come to define Elise's mission. "This studio is my heart," Elise said on the live stream, her voice full of emotion as she stood in front of the mural, her followers watching from around the world. "3 years ago, I thought I'd lose it. But you all helped me save it. My neighbors, my community, my incredible fans. Let's keep creating, keep fighting, keep dreaming together." Her viewers flooded the comments with love. "You're our hero, Elise. This is so beautiful. Never stop painting." As the sun set, casting a golden glow over the studio, Elise sat at her easel, starting a new painting. A sunrise over the ocean, its colors soft and hopeful, pinks and oranges blending into a clear blue sky. She thought about the day the fake HOA cops had tried to take everything from her, the fear, the anger, the uncertainty. But she also thought about what had come after, the strength she'd found in herself, the love she'd received from her community, the lives she'd touched through her art. "They thought they could break me," she whispered, dipping her brush into a pale yellow, the color of dawn. "But they only made me stronger." The studio hummed with life around her, the mural glowing in the fading light, the laughter of her friends and neighbors a melody of hope. This wasn't just a studio anymore. It was a movement, a testament to the power of art, community, and a woman who refused to let her dreams be taken away. Elise Harper turned her studio into a beacon of hope, a place where art heals and dreams thrive. 3 years ago, a group of fake HOA cops thought they could destroy her passion. They broke her canvas, spilled her paint, and threatened to tear down the space she'd built with her own hands. But they didn't know Elise was a TikTok star with a community of 2 million dreamers who'd rally to her side, who'd fight for her with every like, share, and donation. They didn't know she'd turn their destruction into a movement, using her art to lift up others, to create a fund for young artists, to inspire a law that protects creatives across California. Now, her studio isn't just a place to paint. It's a sanctuary for anyone who dares to dream, a reminder that creativity can overcome even the darkest storms. This is HOA Karen Files, where we shine a light on the dreamers who refuse to back down, the ones who turn pain into purpose and fear into hope. I want to hear from you. Have you or someone you know been targeted by a fake HOA? Maybe they tried to shut down your small business, your garden, or your creative space. Tell me in the comments. I read every single one, and your story could be the next one we tell. If you've been inspired by Elise, if her fight has given you the courage to stand up for what you love, hit that like button, share this video, and subscribe to HOA Karen Files. Don't forget to hit the bell so you never miss an episode. We've got more stories of justice, more tales of triumph, coming your way. We'll see you soon. And until then, let's keep painting a brighter future, one brushstroke at a time.